You are standing at the edge of a moment you can't fully explain, but you can feel it. A quiet pressure in the air, a shift beneath the surface of your life. Subtle, yet undeniable. Something about the coming days carries a different weight, a different promise, as if reality itself is waiting for you to decide who you are before it decides what it becomes. You've crossed years believing that change requires effort, struggle, or perfect timing, but now, right now, there is something else tugging at you. A whisper that says your financial life doesn't change because time passes. It changes because you do. And as the final days before December 31st approach, you feel this whisper growing louder, asking you to listen, asking you to awaken. You're not here by accident. You didn't stumble into these words. Something in you has been calling for a turning point, a break in the old pattern, a chance to experience the version of yourself you've imagined for far too long. You've wanted a sign, a shift, a breakthrough. What you're discovering now is that the sign isn't outside you. It's emerging from within you. There is a moment in every transformation when resistance stops making sense, when fear becomes too heavy to carry, when the old identity begins to crumble under the pressure of the new. You feel that tension now, the pull between who you've been and who you are becoming, and whether you realize it or not, that tension is the birthplace of every financial miracle Neville ever described. You're about to step into a journey where the rules of money dissolve, where limitation loses its authority, and where your bank account is no longer a measure of your worth, but a mirror of your state. You're about to discover why your financial reality can change before December 31st. Not because of luck, not because of circumstance, but because of consciousness. As you move through these chapters, you will feel something shifting inside you, a loosening, a remembering, a recentering into the truth Neville insisted on over and over again. You are the operant power, not the victim of your conditions, not a spectator of your fate, the cause, the root, the origin of your financial world. And by the time you reach the end of this journey, something in you will have settled. Something will have clicked into place. You will not be waiting for money. You will be embodying the self for whom money is natural. Your December 31st is coming, but the version of you that arrives there is being shaped right now. Your shift begins here. You stand in a strange space within yourself, a space that feels like a pause between two realities. One reality is familiar, predictable, shaped by every belief you've carried about money, worth, and possibility. The other is a quiet outline of something you've desired but never fully stepped into. And it's here, in this in-between, that your breakthrough begins, long before any number in your bank account changes. You've spent years interpreting your financial life as something separate from you, something that happens to you, something you respond to. But in this moment, you are beginning to sense a deeper truth, that your financial world is not separate from your inner world. It never has been. Every rise and fall, every delay and opportunity, every unexpected blessing, and every moment of lack has been organized by one thing, your state of being. And now something inside you is shifting. You can feel it in the way you breathe, in the way your attention holds itself differently, in the subtle awareness that the old story is losing its grip. You've lived so long with a certain identity around money that you almost believed it was permanent. But as you stand in this inner doorway, you can feel the edges of that identity softening, dissolving, making room for a new version of you to emerge. This is the moment most people ignore, the moment before the evidence, the moment before the change becomes visible, the moment when nothing outside you seems different, yet something inside you refuses to go back to what it was. Neville called this the beginning of the state shift, the moment when you stop attempting to change your world and begin changing yourself. You feel the tension of this moment. You feel the old thoughts trying to pull you back into the familiar patterns of doubt. What if nothing changes? What if I'm fooling myself? What if I'm meant to struggle? But underneath those thoughts, there's another voice rising. Quiet, steady, unmistakable. It says, what if you're finally ready? What if the reality you've been living was never a barrier, only a reflection? What if everything you want is already aligned with the version of you who is awakening right now? You've carried a deep misunderstanding about money, one that almost everyone carries, the belief that money moves first and you adjust later. But you're starting to see that the opposite is true. You move first, then money follows. You shift internally, and the external world reorganizes itself to match that shift. You decide who you are, and your environment conforms. This moment before the breakthrough is sacred because it's the moment when you choose your identity without proof. It's the moment when you step into the feeling of being someone who is safe with money, supported by abundance, aligned with prosperity, even if the physical world hasn't caught up yet. That willingness to assume the state before the evidence arrives is the birthplace of every miracle Neville described. It's the doorway through which your December 31st transformation will enter, but you must allow yourself to stand in this space without rushing, without forcing, without demanding guarantees from the external world. Because the truth is this: you are not waiting for life to change. Life is waiting for you. In this quiet shift, you begin to feel something new forming, a confidence not tied to numbers, a calm not tied to outcomes, a readiness that doesn't need permission. You begin to sense the version of yourself who no longer chases money, no longer fears it, no longer doubts their ability to create abundance effortlessly. You begin to feel the version of yourself who lives with a steady, internal knowing. My financial reality bends to my state, and my state is changing now. This is the moment before the breakthrough. This is the seed of everything that will unfold before December 31st. This is where your new financial identity is born, not through force, but through recognition, not through struggle, but through awakening. And as you move forward, you will notice something remarkable. Your world will begin to shift in small, unexpected ways. Opportunities will feel closer, ideas will feel clearer, paths will feel more open, and your bank account will begin to reflect the internal transformation you are experiencing right now. Your breakthrough starts here, long before it becomes visible to anyone else. You are stepping into a new state, a new identity, a new financial reality. This is the beginning, and you are ready. You have always believed that money resists you. You felt it in the delays, in the empty spaces between paychecks, in the opportunities that slipped through your fingers, in the numbers that seemed frozen no matter how hard you tried to change them. But as you look more closely, as you become more aware of the inner movement taking place within you now, you start to realize something startling. Money has never resisted you. You have been resisting yourself. This realization doesn't arrive with drama. It comes gently, like a truth you always knew but never allowed yourself to admit. You begin to see that every financial struggle you've faced has been shaped not by the world, not by the economy, not by circumstance, but by the identity you've been embodying without even noticing it. You think you want more money, but deep beneath your conscious desire, there has always been a quieter belief shaping your experience. A belief that whispered things like, "It's difficult for me. It doesn't come consistently. I need to earn it the hard way. I'm always a little behind. I'm not used to having a lot." These beliefs didn't come from nowhere. They came from years of patterns, experiences that seemed to confirm themselves, memories that felt like truths. But the moment you begin to examine them, not as facts, but as assumptions, you start to understand why Neville insisted on one idea above all others. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. And what you have been up until now has been someone unconsciously agreeing to limitation. This is the invisible resistance of money, the subtle friction created when the self-image you hold does not match the abundance you expect. You think you're calling money in, but your inner world is whispering, "Not yet, not for me, not this time." You think you're visualizing wealth, but you're still living emotionally in the state of someone who doesn't feel ready for it. Money doesn't resist you. Your state resists money. And you're beginning to see that clearly now. As you observe this resistance within yourself, something interesting happens. It begins to lose its power. Not because you fight it, not because you argue with it, not because you try to replace it with positive thinking, but because you finally see it. You see how long you've identified with lack, even while hoping for abundance. You see how familiar struggle has been, how natural it has felt to brace for difficulty. You begin to understand why your bank account has looked the way it has. Not as punishment, not as injustice, but as a mirror faithfully reflecting the internal image you've held for years. But now, the mirror is cracking. You can feel it. You can sense that the old story is no longer strong enough to define you. The resistance that once felt solid now feels more like a habit, an echo of who you used to be. And as you notice this, your relationship with money begins to shift. Not because the numbers have changed yet, but because you are changing. You start to realize that money isn't personal. It doesn't judge, it doesn't punish, it doesn't choose favorites, it simply responds to the state of the one observing it. When you embody the state of someone who feels undeserving, money mirrors that. When you embody the state of someone who feels supported, money mirrors that. When you embody the state of someone who expects good things, money mirrors that too. The resistance fades the moment you stop chasing money and start understanding yourself. The moment you stop begging life for proof and start giving yourself permission to assume a new inner identity. You begin to sense what Neville meant when he said that you must become the one who already has before the world can show you that you have. You understand that the resistance wasn't a barrier. It was a signal. It wasn't blocking your abundance. It was revealing the point where you needed to shift. And now, right now, you feel that shift beginning. The tension you once felt around money loosens. The fear becomes quieter. The sense of unworthiness starts to dissolve. You feel yourself stepping into a new internal posture, one that does not plead or hope, but simply allows. You begin to feel a calm acceptance, a new naturalness, a readiness. This readiness is the end of resistance, because when you no longer argue with yourself internally, the world no longer argues with you externally. Your financial reality is beginning to respond, even if subtly, even if silently, because you are allowing yourself to become someone who does not resist abundance anymore. And as you continue, the shifts will grow stronger. Your internal world will become clearer. Your external world will begin to reflect your new identity. The invisible resistance is dissolving, and your new financial reality is already approaching you. You have lived most of your life divided into pieces. One version of you for your finances, another for your emotions, another for your relationships, another for your spiritual life. You've carried these identities like separate compartments, each one shaped by expectations, memories, and fears. And without realizing it, this fragmentation has been the greatest barrier between you and the financial transformation you desire. You think you have a money life, but you don't. You think you have a spiritual life, but you don't. You think you have a personal life, but you don't. You have only one life, and everything within it flows from a single point, your state of consciousness. The separation has always been an illusion, but you've believed in that illusion for so long that it has shaped the entire landscape of your experience. You pray for abundance spiritually while expecting setbacks financially. You imagine success emotionally while anticipating disappointment practically. You affirm prosperity in your mind while living as though scarcity is the more reliable truth. This is the fragmentation Neville warned about. when the self becomes split into conflicting assumptions, and the world reflects the internal contradiction with painful precision. You feel that fragmentation inside you now. You feel how one part of you wants to grow, while another part remains loyal to the old story. You feel how one part of you trusts abundance, while another fears it. You feel how one part of you is ready, while another part still hesitates. But the hesitation is losing its power. The split is beginning to close. Something inside you is merging again. As you listen to these words, you start to notice the truth you've avoided for years. Your financial life is not separate from your identity. It's not separate from your spiritual practice. It's not separate from your emotional world. It's not separate from your self-concept. It has always been an extension of who you believe yourself to be. And now, a subtle but profound realization begins to form. Your bank account has never been responding to your desires. It has been responding to the self you've been embodying. You've prayed for more money without becoming the one who naturally has it. You've hoped for better outcomes without assuming the state that produces them. You've visualized success while internally identifying with struggle. This inner conflict has created a life where desire and identity move in opposite directions, pulling you apart, leaving you exhausted, confused, and stuck. But in this moment, something within you is shifting. You feel the beginning of an internal alignment, a merging of the self you've lived as and the self you're becoming. The fragmentation begins to heal the moment you accept a simple truth. You are the source of everything that expresses itself in your world. Money is not outside you. Prosperity is not outside you. Opportunities are not outside you. Abundance is not outside you. They appear external only because you've been observing them through the lens of separation. When you stop dividing yourself into compartments, the world stops reflecting chaos back at you. When you unify your identity, when the emotional you, the financial you, the spiritual you, and the everyday you become one coherent state, your life reorganizes itself into clarity. This coherence is the birthplace of every miracle Neville ever described. And you are beginning to feel it taking shape within you. You sense a new identity forming, one that is whole rather than fractured, one that carries the calm knowing of someone who is not asking for abundance but expressing it, one that no longer begs life for relief, but assumes the naturalness of being supported. As the inner separation dissolves, your outer world prepares to follow. You will notice decisions becoming easier. You will notice opportunities appearing more naturally. You will notice a shift in how people respond to you. You will notice a change in the way money flows toward you. This is not coincidence. This is coherence. This is alignment. This is the collapse of the fragmented self. Every financial limitation you've lived with came from the belief that your wealth was separate from your identity. But now you see clearly. You cannot hold a divided self and expect an abundant life. Abundance requires unity. Prosperity requires wholeness. Transformation requires integration. And you are becoming integrated now. You are becoming whole. You are becoming the self who does not chase money but naturally calls it forth. This union within you is the quiet turning point. This is where the old story loses its power. This is where the new reality begins to take shape. As you continue this journey, you will feel the pieces of your identity snapping into place, forming a single, coherent state that your world will have no choice but to reflect. The separation is ending, the alignment is beginning, and your financial reality is preparing to change because you are becoming undivided. There is a moment in your transformation when the outer world becomes strangely quiet. Nothing dramatic happens, nothing announces itself. There is no sign from the sky, no sudden rush of certainty, no loud declaration from the universe. Instead, something inside you shifts with such subtlety that you almost miss it. And yet this moment, This quiet internal rearranging is the precise signal that your financial reality is about to change. You begin to notice it in the smallest ways. You think about your bank account, and for the first time in a long time, there is no tightness in your chest, no dread, no bracing. The fear that once jumped at every unexpected expense starts to weaken. The sense of desperation you carried so heavily begins to lose its strength. It's not that the circumstances have changed yet, it's that you are changing your relationship to them. This is the silent signal Neville described without ever naming it directly. The internal softening, the moment when you stop reacting to the old story and start embodying the new one. You might not call it a shift. You might not even recognize it as a sign. But your state knows, your consciousness knows. Something in you is releasing the tight grip you once had on fear, and the moment you release that grip, abundance finds a way in. You used to believe that your world needed to change first, so you could finally relax. You used to think that you needed proof before you could feel secure. But now you are discovering a deeper truth. The security you hoped money would give you actually appears before money arrives. It begins as an inner quietness, a stillness that seems out of place according to your old identity, but is perfectly aligned with the state you are stepping into. This stillness is not passivity. It's not resignation. It's not denial, it's recognition. You begin to recognize that your financial story has always been responding to your emotional tone, and your emotional tone is shifting into something steadier, something more open, something more aligned with abundance rather than with struggle. This internal shift is not loud because true transformation rarely is. It does not need to be loud. It only needs to be real, and you can feel its reality growing inside you now. You begin to experience moments where you catch yourself thinking like someone who is no longer panicked by the future. You begin to imagine outcomes that once felt unrealistic, but now feel oddly natural. You begin to move through your day with a quiet sense of inevitability, as if abundance is no longer a possibility, but a direction, one you are already walking toward without effort. This is the silent signal. It appears in 3 distinct forms, and you are beginning to feel each of them, even if softly. The first signal is calmness, not numbness, not avoidance, a genuine calmness where fear used to live. The second signal is familiarity, the feeling that wealth is no longer something you fantasize about, but something you feel yourself capable of holding. You begin to taste the identity of someone who lives with financial ease, even before the numbers confirm it. The third signal is detachment, not indifference, detachment, a sense that the outcome is decided, that your inner world has already moved, and the outer world is simply catching up. These signals do not appear because your external circumstances have shifted. They appear because your internal state is shifting into alignment with the reality you desire. And the moment you embody the new state, the old state begins to unravel. The shift is quiet, but the consequences are not. People start responding to you differently. Unexpected opportunities begin to surface. Ideas come more easily. Intuition becomes sharper. Paths you once overlooked begin to reveal themselves. Your financial world senses the change before you see the change, because the world reflects your state. Not your effort, not your fear, not your desire, only your state. And right now, your state is signaling something powerful. You are no longer the one who expects struggle. You are no longer the one who feels unworthy. You are no longer the one who braces for disappointment. You are becoming the one for whom abundance feels natural. This silent signal is the beginning of the collapse of your old financial story. It is the precursor to every external shift that you will soon witness. It is the inner confirmation that the identity you have stepped into is real, stable, and unfolding through you. You don't need to force anything. You don't need to chase anything. You don't need to demand anything. You only need to recognize what is already happening within you. Your financial change begins here, in the quiet, in the stillness, in the soft remembering of who you really are and always have been. The outer world will adjust soon enough, but the silent signal, the true beginning, has already arrived. There comes a point in your inner shift when life begins to move differently around you. It doesn't wait, it doesn't stall, it doesn't proceed with its usual pace. Instead, it accelerates. Quietly, intelligently, unmistakably. You sense that something is picking up speed, as if the timeline you were once living on has been replaced by another, faster one. And the moment you feel this acceleration, you realize that your financial breakthrough is no longer a distant possibility. It is already in motion. This acceleration isn't chaotic. It isn't rushed. It feels purposeful, as though reality has received an instruction from within you and is now reorganizing itself to obey. You start noticing small things first, a message that arrives at the perfect moment, an idea that feels too aligned to ignore, a conversation that opens a door you didn't even know existed. At first, these details seem random, but as more of them appear, you begin to sense a pattern, a rhythm, moving beneath your experience. This is the moment Neville pointed to when he explained that the world reshapes itself around your assumed identity. Not gradually, not eventually, but immediately, though the effects may appear step by step. You can feel that immediacy now in the subtle but persistent signs that reality is bending toward the new state you've chosen. The timeline accelerates because consciousness has shifted, and when consciousness shifts, the world cannot remain the same. You used to think that change required time, that you needed to wait weeks, months, or even years for your outer reality to catch up. But now you see the deeper mechanism. Time is not the cause of change. Time is the servant of change. It rearranges itself around your inner decision, compressing or expanding according to the state you occupy. This is why the days leading up to December 31st feel charged with a strange energy. You feel the convergence of your past intentions, your present awakening, and your future possibilities all meeting in a single point. It's not the calendar that has power. It's your expectation, your openness, your readiness. As you settle into this new state, the world begins to respond with increasing speed. What once felt distant now feels possible. What once felt possible now feels close. What once felt close now feels inevitable. You no longer move through life as someone hoping for change. You move as someone who knows change is already underway. This shift in certainty is subtle, but its effects ripple outward. You stop questioning every step. You stop doubting every opportunity. You stop assuming that good things must come slowly or painfully. Instead, you begin to experience a natural confidence, an inner knowing that the movement of your reality has quickened because your state is no longer divided. This acceleration shows itself in different ways. Sometimes it feels like coincidence. Sometimes it feels like clarity. Sometimes it feels like being lifted by an unseen current. But underneath every expression of this acceleration lies a single truth. Your inner world is now stronger than your past. You begin to notice that choices come more easily. The hesitation you once lived with begins to fade. The fear that held you back loses its influence. You no longer ask, "Will this work for me?" You ask, "What is the next aligned step?" And the step appears. Every time. This is the nature of a collapsing timeline. Life stops reflecting who you were and begins mirroring who you are becoming. The old pathways lose their relevance. The old obstacles lose their solidity. The old limits lose their authority. The way forward becomes unmistakably clear, not because the world has changed first, but because you have changed first, and the world is responding accordingly. You feel this acceleration most strongly when you stop interfering, when you allow the new identity to express itself without forcing outcomes. In this relaxed state of acceptance, abundance finds you more easily because you are no longer blocking it with doubt, fear, or contradiction. You begin to sense that everything you need is already on its way. The opportunities, the shifts, the resources, the financial breakthrough. You don't chase them. You don't beg for them. You don't bargain with them. You simply align with the self for whom they naturally appear. And as you do, the pace of your reality quickens. What once felt impossible becomes suddenly reachable. What once felt delayed arrives early. What once felt locked opens without resistance. This is not magic. It is not luck. It is the inevitable result of embodying a new state so fully that the world cannot help but match it. The timeline accelerates because you have accelerated internally. Your world is catching up to your identity, and the financial shift you desire is no longer forming. It is unfolding. You reach a point in this journey where wanting is no longer enough. Hoping is no longer enough. Visualizing, affirming, waiting, none of these carry the power they once seemed to hold. You begin to understand that true change does not come from wishing for a different life. It comes from becoming the version of yourself who already lives it. This is the final step. The most important step. The step most people never take. Because this step requires something more than desire. It requires identity. You begin to feel this truth rising within you. Your financial reality is not transformed when money arrives. It is transformed when you arrive. When you arrive in the state of the person who already possesses the wealth, the ease, the freedom, and the stability you've spent years seeking externally. This is not pretending. This is not imagining something you know is not true. This is alignment. This is embodiment. This is assuming the state Neville spoke of with such unshakable certainty. To assume the state is to accept the identity of the one who already has, without negotiation, without waiting for evidence, without demanding that the world confirm your transformation before you allow yourself to feel it. You begin to realize that your feelings about money have always determined your experience with money. When you felt unworthy, your world mirrored that. When you felt overwhelmed, your finances reflected it. When you felt powerless, your reality obeyed. But now, something foundational is shifting. You are choosing a new emotional baseline, one built on confidence, on sufficiency, on quiet certainty. You begin to sense what it feels like to be someone who does not fear the next bill, the next responsibility, the next unexpected expense. You begin to feel the identity of someone who moves through life with a sense of internal abundance, rather than external pressure. And as this identity settles into your consciousness, you feel the old, struggling version of yourself dissolving like fog in the morning sun. This embodiment is not forced, it is not dramatic. It is a decision made in silence, a decision so deep that your world must eventually adjust to reflect it. You stop checking your bank account with dread. You stop bracing for financial setbacks. You stop telling the old story of, "I never have enough." Instead, you begin to breathe as someone who is supported. You begin to think as someone who is capable. You begin to walk as someone who expects abundance, not through arrogance, but through an inner knowing that abundance is simply the natural extension of who you are now. You begin to feel comfortable with the idea of wealth, not as a dream, but as a familiar feeling, a feeling that your nervous system can hold without resistance. And the more natural it feels, the closer it comes. Because reality does not give you what you're trying to force. It gives you what you're willing to become. This is the embodiment Neville meant when he spoke of living in the end. You live in the end not by fantasizing about a future moment, but by inhabiting the identity of someone for whom that future is already real. You do not wait to feel rich after money arrives. You feel rich first, and money arrives because of that feeling. You do not wait to feel secure after conditions change. You feel secure first. and conditions rearrange themselves to match your emotional foundation. You do not wait to feel worthy once life proves it. You feel worthy now. And life mirrors that worth through opportunities, resources, and financial movement. This is the final act before your December 31st breakthrough. Stepping so fully into the identity of abundance that the external world has no choice but to reorganize itself around your new self-concept. You are no longer the seeker. You are no longer the struggler. You are no longer the one who waits for signs. You are the source. You are the cause. You are the one who has already become the embodiment of financial ease, and your world is beginning to shift accordingly. As you settle into this identity, you will notice something profound. Your desires no longer feel distant. Your goals no longer feel overwhelming. Your financial future no longer feels uncertain. You begin to understand that you have crossed a threshold within yourself. You are no longer becoming. You are. You are the one who already has. You are the one who already aligns. You are the one who already holds the vibration of abundance effortlessly, naturally, steadily, and because you are, everything else must follow. You stand now at the end of this inner journey, yet what you feel is not an ending. It's a beginning, quiet, powerful, and irreversible. Something within you has shifted, not in a dramatic burst, but in a steady unfolding, a deep recognition that you are no longer who you were when you started. The old patterns feel distant. The old identity feels thinner, weaker, almost transparent. You can sense that the version of yourself who struggled, who doubted, who feared, is fading into memory. You have crossed into a different inner landscape, one shaped not by limitation, but by awareness. You are beginning to understand, perhaps for the first time, that your financial world has always been a reflection of your internal world. And because that internal world has changed, your external world must follow. Not as a reward, not as compensation, but as a natural consequence of who you have become. You no longer look at your desires from a distance. You feel them from the inside. You no longer wait for abundance to prove itself. You embody abundance before it appears. You no longer treat wealth as something external to be chased. You recognize it as something that flows from your state, your identity, your inner alignment. The shift is done quietly, but the effects are not quiet. Your perspective has changed. Your internal posture has changed. Your sense of self has changed. And because of that change, your trajectory has changed. You are walking toward December 31st, not as someone hoping for transformation, but as someone bringing transformation with you. You are stepping into each day with a new sense of inevitability, a quiet expectation that life is rearranging itself in your favor. You can feel the subtle currents of alignment forming beneath the surface of your circumstances. You can sense the acceleration of events, the soft pull of new opportunities, the natural flow of abundance gravitating toward the identity you now hold. This is not imagination. This is not coincidence. This is cause and effect, inner cause, outer effect. You no longer question whether change is possible. You no longer wonder if your desires are too much. You no longer ask whether you're ready. You have become the one who already has, and when you become, reality must reflect. The world cannot deny the state you occupy. It cannot contradict the identity you embody. It cannot resist the consciousness you have chosen, because consciousness is the foundation, and everything else is rearrangement. You are entering the final days before December 31st with a new sense of clarity. You understand now that the date itself is not the force of change. You are. The deadline is simply a mirror reflecting the urgency of your awakening. The shift that matters is the shift within you, and that shift is already complete. Your bank account will change because you changed. Your opportunities will expand because you expanded. Your financial timeline will accelerate because you accelerated. Nothing is outside you anymore. Nothing is separate. Nothing is unreachable. You have stepped into the identity of abundance, and abundance is responding. As you move forward, you carry this truth with you. You do not manifest by waiting. You manifest by being, and now you are being who you were always meant to be. Your turning point has already occurred. Your new reality is already unfolding, and nothing can undo the shift that has taken place within you. You are ready. You are aligned. You are the one who already has.